Mr. Mayor, there's so much to talk about, so much going on in the city of Johannesburg, but let's start at the beginning. How would you describe your first month in office?
Well, it's been a very interesting journey, mixed emotions, setting up government, appointing the executives, starting with the MMCs and engaging city employees, particularly the heads of department and senior people, working with the city manager, having my first council meeting last week. First, obviously, second one, because obviously the first one, that's when I was elected as mayor. And last week, focus on now the appointment of chairpersons of the various committees to work with the councils to ensure that we deliver services to the people of Johannesburg.
Okay, so the jelly is still settling?
Yeah, it's still settling, just under a month in office. But I think I'm quite pleased with our achievements. It's been great. It's been satisfying. When I go home, I sleep, obviously tired, but I sleep, get up in the morning, go to gym and come back here. And it's a kind of work where you work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Sure. I want to talk about this current hot issue, the Fees Must Fall campaign. Protests taking place at Witwatersrand University, at universities across the country, different universities, following that statement by the Higher Education Minister on fee increments not exceeding 8%. The students are angry, they're upset. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on this issue.
Well, it's a difficult situation because this is the government that promised our youth, our students, free education. What I need to understand, when they made this promise, whatever time, where did they think they were going to get the money from? Was it just politicking, or were they thinking that they were going to get away with it? Now, all of a sudden, it's caught up with them, and I think it's up to government to sort it out. But for me, as a South African, what concerns me is, where's the money going to come from for free education? Because if you look at the balance sheet of this country, sure, with all the best intentions, it is my wish and hope that one day I can live in a country where we can afford free education, particularly higher education. But can South Africa today afford it? Our balance sheet is there for all of us to see. This country cannot afford free education.
So not an immediate reality.
Yeah, that is why I don't understand when the government, when they were politicking a few years ago, promising that there's going to be free education. I think they owe it to us and the students in particular as to why they made these promises.
Let's talk about the thorny issue of migrancy. It's a concern because this is the city of opportunity, the city of gold. People from all over the continent come here looking for better opportunities, and every now and then that ugly head of xenophobia pops up. There's still a lot of tension. Migrants feel threatened to some degree. Is that a concern of the city of Johannesburg as well?
Well, I think, for me, as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg, where we probably must be sitting with the biggest number of illegal immigrants in our city, I think it goes back to the national government, why we've allowed our borders to literally collapse. South Africa needs to attract people into our country, but I think we need people to come into our country legally. We just cannot afford. Any country without borders cannot be a country. So basically what is happening, our failure to have borders, controlled borders, we are actually turning our country into a failed state. And I think before we become a failed state, we need to appeal to the national government to deal with this particular matter. We just cannot afford to have people in our country who are here living criminally and so forth. So we need to deal with this particular matter, and I'm concerned with the number of the people living in our city, hijacking our buildings in particular. Basically, you're hijacking the future of this nation. Johannesburg has to be the engine to drive the economy of this country. Now, when our buildings are hijacked by criminal international syndicates, I'm warning them, this matter cannot really be tolerated. I am in discussions and with all the stakeholders, starting with civil society. I want residents of Johannesburg to please allow me to deal with this for the future, for the sake of the future of our country and our children's future. We just cannot allow our city to be hijacked and be controlled by criminal syndicates. So I'm working with law enforcement agencies. I'm working with private developers, because we want to turn Johannesburg into another construction site so that we can build houses for our people, low-cost housing, affordable housing. We want our people to come back and live in the city, work in the city, and play in the city. But for us to be able to do that, we need to take back properties that belong to the city. We need to take those buildings that are owned by private individuals, hijacked by criminal elements, I'm owning them without any doubt, and we're not apologizing to that effect, that those buildings belong to people of South Africa. If you want to live in our country, please respect the laws of our country. We just cannot allow a situation where you come from anywhere in the world and then you think you can get away to breaking the laws of this country. It's not going to happen going forward in the city of Johannesburg.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Mayor, you made quite a revelation recently around the fact that the Gauteng provincial government failed to pay their hefty municipal bills. And that's been going on for quite some time. Tell us more about this. And I think the important question for Joburg residents is, what happened to that money?
Well, I think it's actually quite unfortunate. As you're aware, the media posed this question openly to me just over a week ago, bringing to my attention that certain government departments are not paying their dues. I was not aware about it. I wasn't there yet. Obviously, I was one day going to come across it, but the media is so. That's why I sometimes appreciate and love the role that media plays in this country. And as soon as it came to my attention, I then immediately instituted an investigation into this matter. And by Friday last week, that's when I got a report. The provincial government owes the city 259 million rands. 3 departments. Mm-hmm. And I found it actually quite alarming and disturbing, because I expect government actually to play an exemplary role. Government is the one that has to ensure that people respect the laws of the country. And if that is the case, government has got to play a leading role in ensuring that people respect the laws. So for me, I found it very interesting. If I look at the province, without any doubt, they must have budgeted for this payment. What happened? What happened to the money that's supposed to have paid the city of Johannesburg, firstly? And secondly, who else do they owe if they're unable to pay the city of Johannesburg? So I can imagine they must be having other creditors on the sidelines that are not being paid. So it looks like it's a much deeper challenge than just the payment, lack of payment to the city of Johannesburg. But I have written a letter to the Premier, and we expect him to give us the sense of when we can expect this payment. We gave them 30 days, like we do it with anybody else who owes us. That people must understand, when the city provides services, you've got to pay for them if you can afford it. Yeah. Because we have communities in our city that cannot afford. And those, we believe as a city, coming out with a plan to ensure that those households are excluded from the payment. But those that can afford to pay, without any doubt, they have to pay, because we have the responsibility to ensure that we run an efficient government.